So it's like we're in a kind of we're in an area, if you will, however you're going to look at that, whether it's up or down or whatever. It's kind of conceptual and, in that sense, temporal, but more or less there's a given amount of soul, if you will, and I'm just trying to make it, now the pen went all the way down. There's a given amount of soul, and then with what's occurred, there might be more material bodies, if you will, and so then the from every layer of life here, basically, through the insect and animal kingdom up to the human, which could go either direction, I suppose, but we kind of conceive of going out, but that kind of brings the idea of space and so on, and the system could be different in the sense of gears of time, kind of like, bicycle gears, and instead of seeing like balls, but tracks. And so it kind of gets confusing to use any of these geometric or spatial references or explanations, but either way, you kind of flip-flop it to the point where either going out from this animal kingdom perspective that's kind of held down to the planet by gravity and getting our consciousness on a big enough orbital track that we're literally where we should be, which is meaning we're not being controlled by anything that's below us. I think like Randy Green has been talking about, I haven't seen her videos, but I've been getting requests and not requests, but suggestions and stuff like that. And that's a lot of the stuff I chose to specifically not really talk about, but it's like you have a planetary body and there's pretty much enough soul energy to be in a portion of that body in terms of what's represented here, meaning the kind of frequency of consciousness is split up in these formats through these kind of like sections through the planet, and so whoever is going to be basically where the human aspect is has to navigate their brainwave frequency up or down in that level to match their life as a overall frequency. And again, it might be, maybe it's down here, that's like the 0 point or something, but maybe that's really into some type of loss of awareness, or maybe it has to go small enough, which is high enough in frequency, well, I guess that way, but small enough because it's in, if you will, and then that can kind of slip out through the high frequency, which kind of be like saying the in path is out. But these are all, I try not to use any of these terminologies. If I do, I have a big drawing board, which this is actually, it's cool to draw on. The board is easier, but it's harder to use that, I guess. But I guess this can be used to, I just have to separate the little drawings out basically and use more zooming. But it's kind of like marbles in a jar. I don't know why. And so if you shake them up, eventually all the little ones will go on the bottom, and then the big ones kind of gather around up top. It's kind of the opposite of that, in the sense that the dense consciousness is going to gravitate towards what's happening here, kind of like a continuum, and the smaller consciousness is more or less going to, if you will, anti-gravitate, levitate, or if, say, a bunch of vibrations, waves go into the system and liquefy everything to shake it up to see what's going to go to the top and what's going to the bottom. The lighter consciousness is probably going to go on the outside, if you will, and that's not going to hold on to anything. It's not going to have any resistance towards stepping away, walking away from what's going on here. In the same sense, it could just mean being kind of aware in the spirit more than you're aware of in the body, but it gets a little confusing, and then you can go, okay, so some of these, I don't know, you can break things down more and more to the point where some of the experiments, or possibly the entities here or something like that, or maybe even the insects and some of the animals themselves lack some type of human relevance, in the sense, or maybe that they're in a way drop down in frequency and consciousness and kind of trapped, if you will, that they're trapped in their bodies, and they're trapped in their bodies in this system. I almost zoomed in. This system, it's been an issue before. Yeah, it's a metaphor. This system then is a body made up of trapped bodies, you could call cells. But maybe that's all perspective. It kind of depends. If we were then, so then this idea I was beginning is we're in a kind of like, we're in an area here where your DNA and your mind and your spirit's always, if you will, it's not set in the particular format. Like the blueprint isn't built in what's going to go on for eternity until everything is completed, meaning the whole system, top to bottom, has to be organized. Everybody has to be put in their place or go to their place. It's however it works. But in that sense, you could look at it that we come in here kind of like an amount that can be filled, and then we seek to achieve to fill that and then leave. And once it's filled, we leave. And if it ends before that, if you will, it doesn't really amount to anything. And so then if we come in as the human, if you will, we kind of, that's a great, we kind of, you wouldn't say, I came in as so-and-so, a human, and I came out a chipmunk, and I'm happy with that. I can deal with that. That would be the worst shit ever. So the point is, a human that I came in as a human, and it's like I came here to learn something great or do something great, or not have anything in connection with what's going on here at all, because as the process goes on, we just pass through. But then in that sense, the greatness would be more or less in letting go in a world where everybody's kind of stuck or holding on, where it's not happening as much, which is kind of inverse. It's making it seem like it's something great because a lot of shit or not great is going on, which is kind of part of the game. But the idea is you wouldn't want to, honestly, to put it in layman's terms, then you would come in as a human and say, I just came to see what was going on, and I'm going away just to go see what was going on somewhere else. And there would be no resistance. There would be kind of neutrality, or you wouldn't be too far one way or too far the other way. It would just be kind of neutral, passively in the center, more or less staying within and exiting through your own personal saga that must lead in your understanding of your own capacity for experience without miscommunicating or disabling yourself through any attachments or emotional entanglements or mental entanglements in the system. If you see it that way, you look at it's kind of like our brainwaves are spitting out these huge holographic fields of information, like a jigsaw puzzle in time space. And then, well, if this whole system is made out of that, in a sense, we're mixing up all our brainwave holographic jigsaw puzzle webs in our fields and bashing them all together like cars crashing or something like that. And trying to get out of that, it's almost like going to a party where everybody bangs their heads together and then walks away upside down and bloody nosed and concussed and unaware of where they came from or how to get home, and they're, everybody's got amnesia. And so, but the idea is it's not physical, it's what we're doing mentally with whether we're going in and then pretty much getting distracted and then forgetting what we are, what we came here for, what we're feeling, listening to what we're feeling, behaving in the sense that we know what we're doing. All these casual, simple disturbances or distortions, they project out the concept of what you came in as, the blueprint that you must build, you rebuild for yourself to leave out as, being tarnished, charred, or destroyed. And in that sense, it's pretty much like saying you went out, you're in space, and it's like you're on the tether or whatever, 200 million miles out, and then the tether breaks, or the line starts to crimple or something, and your data transfer or your lifeline, your information, or blood or oxygen or whatever we're going to use in this metaphor, if that happens, then you could say, like a dream, you just snap back to where you were. But it would mean that it's not that it's good or bad in the sense, because you kind of wouldn't want to say it's, I guess, one or the other, because you kind of leave that. Although you could say that it's not the only thing that can happen, and that there's something more than that, and then the goal is to kind of have something more. And so then there's always something more. It's just whether you're aware of how that works or not. And so in that sense, you could see how anything throwing you off your center and your emotional or mental, cognitive, self-referential capacity of basically knowing yourself. It sounds weird, but it just means somebody who's insane and is doing things to harm themselves or another and can't see what they're doing is in some level of delirium or lack of awareness of their self. Now, to the point of somebody saying, like, I don't say they don't care, or I don't care, you can say whatever, it's BS. Then they're consciously insane, and the issue is still there, but it's overlaid in multiple layers, as if the mind is kind of like the holographic webbing of the magnetic fields, or the images of the magnetic fields. And in the sense, what if then the realm, the body, the mind can be overlaid to the point where we're interacting through ourselves in different dimensions through the different interactions, basically layers of the DNA as kind of signal multiplexing system, processing system. And in that sense, what we're doing here, if we're not in balance, what we're doing here, kind of like we're spinning plates on all different limbs, and using that balance to also balance what's going on in other places, and to continuously do that kind of like not in rotation, but in a simultaneity. That's where we get the concept of being trapped or unable to leave or break free from a routine. And that was the orbital consciousness grooves I was talking about, where so many people had pretty much traveled in the same condensing, collapsing emotional, mental fields in these systems due to war for the most part, that the consciousness, it degraded. And then because of, I guess, how space works or time works, these were the most powerful signals there, because there was no one else doing that. It was as if that was the first motion for human consciousness. And so it consecutively became harder the more and more people tried and failed. Although there's really no failure, because again, what I was saying originally is that in this system, nothing's made. Once it's completed, then it's made, and the whole system is, maybe in a way, that's funny, adorned or worn like a garment on the higher self or the spirit, which would be shrouded in it. But it means then, if what it was through our actions, basically this is also time, so it's kind of like everything is a time slot, the amount of actions you do and the energy, and that adds up maybe daily, weekly, hourly, to a priority level of what you're placing in or outside of your priority level, and that adds up in all to make basically your view of your life, as if it's layer by layer, like a tree. It's like a tree, rings on a tree. And so then if you take it out and it's like, this was the amount of, I don't know, self-awareness, and then this was the amount of delay between layers based upon so-and-so, desire or fear or basically attachment. All that describes attachment. That if it basically doesn't have the proper proportions, it won't add up to a human outlook, because it would be like growing a different overall genetic, tonal system, which on the next level would be distorted if it wasn't balanced, and balanced again is what it came in as. And so then the idea is that what we're doing here, in terms of, I guess in this theory, if you want to call it, is describing who we are, what our body's going to be in the next life, and even different, and the next, not the, but outside. It's now. It's not the next. It's now. It's all now. It's already happening, and it's that way. However, this gives another point of view as well. In the higher sense, you have that, but then this could be, oopsies, this could be up here, and then that could be kind of like that, and in the center, if you will, kind of, to the point where the relevance is always top down according to what you came in as, and that's how you go out. You go out the way you came. You don't try and go this way because it's not, there's nothing there. It's a projection. It doesn't mean you're going to fall off the edge. It means outside of the scope of what you came in as perfectly, and then enough out to the side that before you you complete yourself, you still become who you're supposed to be, being who you always were, and all the energy spent trying to curve yourself back is energy kind of diminished, if you will. But however, if you make it to yourself, you always gain. It's like strength, to the point where if somebody goes off in the path, like I'm just gonna, I don't know, become a fucking weird paint sniffing cartel member or something in the undergrounds of LA, literally the underground street people that are, I don't know if you've seen the documentaries, it sounds kind of weird. In my personal opinion, I would never come back from that if I made that decision. No matter what I did, I'd just be like, yep, I'm me, because I would never do that though. And so the whole thing is a weird self-fulfilling prophecy of not doom or whatever you want, because whatever you fear can't actually exist. You can never go so far from your center that you couldn't get back, because you couldn't make the angle that would be farther enough to go out there. We're all within like this weird, it's like the salt crystal can't grow beyond where it is anyway. Or if you did, it wouldn't be that, it would anyway. Just weird. But then and so the idea is you go in, I think I lost my train of thought. The way you come out, and I did lose my train of thought, but this is interesting. So it's just what is happening here begins once you achieve understanding of, I don't know, like it goes backwards. So it can never actually be what it isn't, but it's almost like you have to know that as well, because if you just forget it, it's like I don't even know what that means. And then so it's like lightning. Once it's formed what you are, it's like a tether goes down, that you could barely see, and then this spark occurs, and in a flash you're kind of back. I think that's pretty much what it is. Like something happens, and it's kind of like Liechtenstein figures, I think, in wood, where it sparks and creates that arc. And something's doing that to space-time, I guess, like making crystals, and it's how something happens with souls, I don't know. And something's shooting tech in, or infected the place with tech, and in the nanosecond it takes to go pow, and the whole life is formed. So it's frozen time, if you will, and trying to overlay and infect the genetics. And there's multiple layers of kind of time differential, more or less, to break the process down. And it's supposed to be every human soul gets out. That's just the point. And then I guess going left or right in the matrix, depending, or basically over the equilibrium, is depending on and not this way though. That would be like back to the overhead view. Oops. That's like a bunch of sixes. Come on. And so then people go in, I think it's the right, really, supposed to be, or west, excuse me, or so I guess, yeah, that way. Where, was it west? That west is supposed to be the open gate, or, I don't know, they're saying, you'll look it up, Yellow Rose and blah, blah, blah. But there's two gates depending on which way we go. It's kind of like, we're here in this orbital system, and we think we're just going to spin, but we don't really spin here. It's literally like 1,000,000 miles of light of time, whatever you want to call it, soul energy that we're actually spinning around, orbiting around each time. And so whichever way we lens or turn, kind of like, whatever way we're going spirit-wise, is going to go upwards or forwards, if you will, like quote unquote in time, which is probably backwards, meaning there's more and more energy and less entropy. Is pretty much backwards in the perception of this universe. And the other way goes forward in time. It might be west, and I think it is west, but or is it east because east is into the sun. Anyway, there's a bunch of metaphors and they're really confusing because both the groups twist. Well, one group twists all the metaphors of another group, and so then the other way is basically further into time, which is into entropy, which is into the physical, which is into the basically broken universe that's never going to map out its blueprint that gives you back what it takes from you. So we're kind of manually stepping out of that, and so the system here is organizing DNA, or what we're doing, at least in terms of humanity having self-awareness, the ability to choose, is organizing. I guess we're organizing our own DNA, using our thoughts and our energy to the point where we have to. If you're aware of it, you're aware of it, and you're going to form that system, and you put your consciousness on, or your higher awareness, if you will, your super consciousness, your self-awareness on top, and it's basically overseeing all. And in that sense, you're placing yourself in the spirit so that you're overseeing all in that. And so then it's kind of, but it's really confusing because I don't know if, does that mean to like, it's kind of like controlled detachment from the illusion of stuff that pretty much tries to dramatize your existence to keep you here and keep you in some type of neural net. And then so only once we do whatever that completion is, does it last forever, if you will? In a sense, it's kind of like it can't be undone at that point, because you would have to redo all of the little layers of everything that's happening here in order to give yourself the chance to have that kind of labyrinth experience in order to get out. And I'm not going into sine wave because that just means it's going to make the crystal weak. Whereas if you have a straight cleave instead of something like that,